Hey David, how do you start a hive?
Let's talk about that. Hello, my name is David, and I am here in central Connecticut with two beautiful Langstroth hives. You are watching the Buzz channel, the very first episode, and what we're going to talk about today is
What you need to start a...
exactly what you need to start a hive, and what are the components of that hive, because these are awesome living creatures. These are livestock, and these livestock need a really good place to live. So
How did you pick the location in this instance?
So I picked a location based off of a couple factors. So the first factor is sun. Okay, all living creatures, plants included, and bees, they all need sun. That sun is going to stimulate their activity. So you want a beehive to get sun in the early morning because that sun is going to stimulate all those bees to get out there and go forage and get that awesome nectar and pollen.
What direction are these bees hives facing?
They're facing south. They're facing south because, like I just said, you want that first early morning sunlight to get those bees active and moving. So sunlight is a huge consideration, but yet at the same time you want to pick a location that you get afternoon shade. You don't want to overheat the bees. The bees need to be at a stable temperature, and just like you and me, if we get overheated, we get cranky and things just aren't good. So you want early morning sunlight to stimulate the bees, and you want a little bit of shade to cool them off. So that's one thing. Sun is a huge thing, actually. Okay. If you look over here, we got some trees over here, and these trees are a nice windbreak. Okay, windbreak. What's that mean? It's going to break the wind. You want to make sure that the bees and the hives they live in are not buffeted by wind gust after wind gust after wind gust. Now, we're lucky to be here where we get a little bit of wind, but it's not crazy. Why don't you want a lot of wind? You don't want a lot of wind because these hives can really only take so much blowing about, and if they get blown hard enough, okay, the thing is going to come falling down. That's one thing. That's one reason why you don't want a lot of wind. The other reason is because wind, just like it cools us down, is going to cool the hives down, and by extension the bees. Remember, the temperature is important. Okay, so you want a windbreak. Sun, a little bit of shade, windbreak. You go over here, okay, water is another consideration. So you want water. So let's go over to the water tank and I'll show you the water tank. So water is really important because the bees actually, why don't we look at this right here? We got two bees. And the bees are actually landing on these aquatic plants. I have a 40-gallon tank here. And you want to have a water source nearby your hives. Why? Bees use the water, okay, to cool off the hive, like air conditioning. And also, they use that water to dilute the honey and make that honey production as much as it can be.
And there's aquatic life in here too.
There is, yeah. And so they're landing on that aquatic life. What are these? These are little ramps I used to allow the bees to crawl down to the water and drink the water because bees can't swim. But they like the plants a bit better because they're natural, I think. So.
Okay, what are these?
These are salt licks. Okay, salt, very important for bees as well as all living creatures. And the bees are going to lick the salt. Why are they going to lick the salt? They're going to lick the salt because all living creatures need water and they need salt. You and I need salt. Every living creature needs salt. It just allows our bodies to function properly. It allows the bees to function properly. So the bees will lick that salt for their own nourishment, and it'll bring some salt back for baby bees because baby bees need salt as well.
Okay.
All right. So water's important. Water's also important because some towns they have a law that's put in place that says that you need to have a water source nearby. Usually they'll say a foot range, so they'll say 50 feet or less or 100 feet. We don't have that law here where I am in central Connecticut, but it's still good though because like I got neighbors with pools all around us, and so the bees are going to look for water, and if you don't put water nearby, there's a chance they might go bug your neighbors. So if it's
a good tip.
It is a great tip. So we're going to head back over here. So we got sun, southern exposure, sun comes in. We got a little bit of shade in the afternoon. We got our water source. The next thing you want to think about is, should I put my hives on level ground or on a hill? Because some people have a hill. We are on a hill. Okay, you don't want to be on the bottom of the hill if possible. You'd like to be on level ground. Why do I say that? cool air tends to go down a hill and settle at the bottom of the hill. Once again, temperature is huge. The cold air will settle at the bottom of the hill and cool the hives down. Now, I can't avoid this because this is where I needed to put the hives. This is the only location available. So make do with what you have. Remember, it's about what you're going to be able to do. You know, not every situation is going to be perfect, but you can work with what you have to make your hive successful. So we got sun, we got water, we got make sure that it's not at the bottom of the hill, okay? We got the salts near the water. And so those are the major considerations, and also windbreak as well. So that's where you want to locate your hive. The other thing is, you know, I just want to remind you, if you could point the camera right over there, you know, we have neighbors to our left and our right, and so we have people all around us. So even if you're in some place as suburban as this, or even as urban as, say, New York City or Washington, D.C., they have hives on the roofs. It's actually part of the zoning code, so they can do that. So don't be intimidated if you have neighbors to your left and your right. Obviously, it would be preferable to talk to your neighbors and say, look, I'm going to get some hives. However, though, make sure that you're discreet. You know, a lot of beekeepers will recommend, if you can, talk to your neighbors. If you can't, keep them in a discreet location. Okay, so that's why I kind of have some shrubbery here. So just people, you know, people are not going to get concerned because some people have a bad understanding of what a honeybee is, and they may get nervous. Okay, so we're going to walk over here. So that's location.
Are you going to tell us what are the components that make
I am going to tell you about the components, but
beehive?
But before we go over and talk about the components, I'm going to sort of give you a picture. Okay, so the bees need to come back to a home. Okay, they need to live in that home. They need to be able to store things in that home: honey, nectar, pollen. Okay, and they need to raise their baby bees in that home. So the bees, like me and you, they need a living space. They need a living room. They need a kitchen. Okay, to sort of cook up the food. You need a place to store the food, and they need a nursery to raise the babies, to raise the bees. And so, like us, the bees have those needs. They need to store things, they need places to do things. And so that's where you come into the hive. So we'll head over to the hive. I want to get away from the bees while I was explaining that so we wouldn't get distracted by the humming and all that. So the components of the hive, starting from the very bottom, even before we start talking about the equipment, the very bottom is what's called a hive stand. Now, I use cinder blocks. You don't have to use cinder blocks. You could use a pallet. You could use 1 to 2 pallets stacked up. You could use maybe just some 2x4s nailed together and making a little bench. But the point is, you want to get all the equipment 16 inches off the ground. Why 16 inches? To keep the critters away. Okay. The next thing you're going to have above the hive stand is what's called a bottom board. Why is it called a bottom board? It's on the bottom.
How much of the bottom board is the bottom board?
The bottom board is from here to here to here to here. It's this section right here, okay? This
is one type of bottom board?
Correct. So we have 2 types of bottom boards. We have one that is solid, okay? And then we have one that is screened.
Screened?
Screened, right? Screened. Why is it called screen? Because there's a screen on there. Why get screened versus solid? I recommend screened. Why get screened versus solid? Okay, you can see me through this mesh, no? Okay, this screen is going to allow air to pass through. Air is good. Air keeps the temperature at a nice stable level. Remember, temperature is really important with bees. So that air is going to come up through the bottom, cool off the hive, keep it nice and comfortable. Nice, cozy temperature for the bees. So you can have screened or solid. This is screened. You can't see because it's stacked on top, but I recommend screened. After the screened, you have different size boxes, okay? Remember what I said, the bees need places to live, okay? These first couple boxes I'm going to talk about, they're the place where the baby bees are raised, but they're the place where the bees are going to just start out their existence once you get your package of bees. So we got 3 different sizes of boxes. We got a short one, okay? We have a short one about this tall. We have one that's a little bit taller, and then we have one that's very tall. Okay? The one that's very tall is going to go on the bottom. It's called a deep or a hive body, but same thing. 2 different words, but describing the same thing. So this deep, okay, is on the bottom. Typically in the north, you will have northern United States. You will have 2 deeps.
We have 2 deeps because we are in New England.
Correct, and it's cold.
It's colder.
Okay? The colder environment you get, the more space the bees need because they need to get a lot of resources. They need to store a lot of resources, and they need to have a lot of room to raise a lot of baby bees. in the end, it's a numbers game, guys. So in the north, the winter comes, the bees in the spring and the summer need to get so big that they can survive in the winter and make it through. With one box, it would not give them enough space to raise baby bees.
So you're saying that in the south that you only need one of these boxes and you should be fine.
Correct.
One of these bigger boxes.
Correct. In the northeastern part of the country, just anywhere in the north, you're going to need two, because the bees need to get all that pollen and resources so they can make it through the winter, have enough space to have a big enough population to make it through the winter. Okay.
So where's the entrance in the base?
All right.
So how does that work?
So there's an entrance reducer. Okay, it's just a little strip of wood with different sized notches cut into it, and you can rotate it and those notches will change shape. It's just a little strip of wood that you stick in this little slot that is part of the bottom board. The bees come in and out there.
Okay.
Back to this. You have a very large box, the largest size possible, called a deep. You have a second deep because we're in the north. Okay. You then have what's called a medium. This is not a medium, this is another deep, because I'm housing a sugar syrup jar. But you would have that medium-sized box, and then you can have as many medium-sized boxes as you want. So all that's mandatory is you need two really tall boxes, two deeps. Okay, then you have medium ones that are a little bit shorter than this deep, and I'll show you what that looks like. And those medium ones, you can stack as many as you want before you get to the roof. Okay, those medium-sized ones are where the bees are going to store their honey. So you get to decide how many mediums you want. You can have 1, 2, 3, 4, as much as you think that you'll be able to store honey in, because the bees are going to use it almost like an attic.
How do these boxes sit on top of each other?
Just gravity. There's no glue, no nails, nothing. Just gravity. So I'm going to show you. So after you have your deep boxes, I'm going to go over here and show you what the next size on that you put on looks like. It's called a medium. Some people call it a super. Super because you put it above those deeps.
So anything above a deep is called a super.
Correct, because super means above. So you want to bring in the camera close. See how it's about half the size? It's about half the size. Maybe close. A little bit smaller, okay? They make ones even smaller than this called shallow. Okay, shallows are smaller than this, but the purpose is still the same. They're still above the deeps, and they're used to collect honey. So, to review, you got a bottom box. Okay, it can be solid or screened. I recommend screened because of airflow. You then have a very, very large box where the bees are going to live, raise baby bees, store food. It's called a deep, or a hive body. 2 deeps in the north, 1 in the south. Anything above that, okay, is going to be called a medium-sized box, or another term would be, for just a generic term, would be a super. Okay, you can have a medium-sized box like this, or an even smaller one, which is like this high. It's called a shallow. But the purpose is the same. It's to collect honey.
Okay.
Okay.
That's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah. Then, moving on from there, okay, then you have an inner cover, which I'll show you what the inner cover looks like. Okay, an inner cover is just, if you want to look down, it's just a flat piece of wood like this. Okay. And Danielle, if you bring the camera down here, it's literally just a flat piece of wood. It's just a little cover. Okay, and the inner cover just makes it so that the bees can't get underneath this top here. And this is the top. The very end of the process, you put a top, and that keeps the rain and the elements out.
And then you put a rock on top.
And you put a rock on top to keep the cover from blowing over. Okay. I can show you what that inner cover looks like, though. It's called an inner cover. It goes just before the top. Looks like this. So what Danielle was showing you, the camera lady was showing you, that little strip I said is just this. So you have that, then you have the top. It's got an aluminum covered surface and then a rock. And all this is here, it provides a second entrance for the bees, and it just keeps them from getting underneath that cover and just causing a ruckus. So that's what that is. That is all the equipment that you're going to need. You have a bottom box, bottom board. It can be screened like on the right, or it can be solid like the one right behind it. I recommend screened. You then have a very deep box, okay, a very high box, called a deep or a hive body. You get 2 of those in the north, 1 in the south. You then have as many supers as you want. Remember, supers are medium boxes, and they're shallow boxes, and they're like those deeps. They're just not as high. Those store honey. You can have as many or as few as you want. Then you have an inner cover, which keeps the bees away from that top cover, and then you put the top cover on. So that's what you need for equipment.
So what do you need for tools?
Tools, good question. So as you're working the bees, your number one go-to tool is going to be what's called a hive tool. Now the hive tool
It's also known as what?
Well, this actual design is actually called a J tool. They're all called hive tools, but this specific one is called a J tool because it looks like a J. Okay, so this J tool, and we'll come over here, I'll show you how it works. So if I was to try to lift any of these boxes and separate them with just my strength alone without this tool, it'd be impossible. Because everything is glued together. Everything is glued together with bee glue. And it's called propolis. We'll cover that in a later Buzz episode, but it's propolis. And so that propolis is going to stick everything together. If I did not have this tool, I could not, for example, lift up these frames inside the boxes. Frames are where the bees live, okay? The bees build their comb on these frames. So all the boxes, remember the deeps, the shells, every box in here has frames.
What is this made out of?
This is called foundation. It's made of plastic, and it gives the bees a pattern to build what's called wax comb. So the same stuff that you put in Burt's Bees, the wax, is what they build on top. They cover it, and they store all their baby bees and food inside these cells.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's used to separate the frames and
right, yeah.
pick
So
them
this
up.
tool separates the frames, helps you pick them up, because I wouldn't be able to do that because it'd be too sticky. It would be impossible. This gets out nails. Okay, and this is for scraping. Scraping that bee glue off.
Okay.
So that's why you have a tool. You need a tool. Any other tool really wouldn't be effective. You could maybe get away with like some other scraper that you would see on some sort of construction site, but really they make these specific for beekeepers, so I recommend getting them. Okay, this is another hive tool which we do not need to talk about. Frame grip, okay? Those things that I was talking about, those frames, you just pinch onto the frame and lift it up. Really easy, so you can do that. Pinch on and lift it up. That's called a frame grip. Smoker, very important. Okay, smoker, you put fuel inside, it burns and produces smoke. Why smoke? Anytime you go inside the hives, the bees are going to get agitated. Why? Because you're lifting the roof off their house. They don't like it. Okay, so the smoke is going to mask, okay, their alarm system. It's going to short circuit their alarm system. It's going to make it so that they won't sting you as much or as often. Sometimes it even causes an inspection with the nose stings. And so a little puff of smoke calms the bees down. Very necessary.
What is the fuel that is used?
The fuel is wood pellets. Some people use pine needles. You can use burlap, untreated burlap. So they have burlap that's been treated with like fungicides and other chemicals. But natural, organic, untreated burlap was fine. Wood pellets is fine. It's just pellets. The other thing you could use is pine needles, like I said. And you burn those, and it'll produce a nice smoke. It'll calm the bees down.
What is the brush?
The brush is just the bee brush. So say if you have a bee on you and you want to brush them off instead of flicking them with your finger.
I've also seen people use it to like brush bees off frames. It's not usually the best way.
Yeah, I've seen that too, but I wouldn't recommend doing that. I would recommend
using the smoker instead.
Using the smoker, maybe puffing the bees on your arm and then gently brushing them off. See, the problem with this is that the bees get stuck in the bristles. So it's okay, but they literally will get stuck inside a bristle.
Okay.
And then you gotta flick them out, which is not good for them. So you don't want to do that. Okay. So moving on from your hand tools and your smoker, you need an outfit. Why do you need an outfit? Well, because you're a superhero. You're saving the bees. Okay, so outfits are great, right?
I like that.
Outfits are great, right? Okay, they make you look cool, and they also protect you. Okay, so this is the headpiece to your outfit, your superhero outfit, because you're a beekeeper. Okay?
So if you were like getting ready to go to the bees, like this is like you would put on the hat
that you put on. Okay.
Okay.
It's called the bee veil. Why veil? Because just like when you're getting married, you're marrying the bees, and it actually goes over your face and it veils your face. Okay. Keeps the bees out of your face. You're then going to put on a jacket. Okay. This is just, there is no special name for this. It's just called a jacket. Put on the jacket, zip that up. Now, I'm not zipping anything, but you would. Gloves go on each arm. Okay? Pants, protect your legs. Very important. Step into this. Finally, you got what's called gaiters.
So this goes on after you put your pants.
After you put the pants on, you're going to step into this, and it's going to go over your pants, and it's going to keep your pants tight up against your leg because the bees have a tendency of going down, or excuse me, not down, up your pant leg.
Okay.
And so these gaiters, it just compresses everything, keeps everything tight, so the bees can't get up underneath and sting you. So those are the pieces to what's called the bee suit.
So you have you have to order a bee suit, you have to order tools, you have to order boxes and components,
you gotta order
water source.
And let's not forget the bees themselves. The bees, I have Italian bees. Now there's a couple varieties of bees. Why are they called Italian? Because they originate from Italy. They're species.
So you have two colonies, one named which?
Roma and one Napoli, because they're Italian and I'm Italian, so. Okay, so you have two colonies of bees, Roma, Napoli, but they're both the same species. They're both Italian. They're pretty active, actually. Italians are very gentle. I would recommend, as a first-time beekeeper, getting Italian. How much, were they? They were fairly expensive, but not too expensive. They were around 120. You could get as low as 90. So at the end of the day, these bees are going to reproduce, and so it's a good investment. It's not too bad.
Do you have to register your hives?
You do. Good question. Okay. You're going to get all this stuff, and you're probably going to say to yourself, "Man, I'm getting overwhelmed right now. What do I do?" First thing you do, Google local beekeepers club. Okay, beekeepers get together, they mentor one another. Get a mentor. Very important. Okay. There's a lot of stuff that you're going to learn for the first time that you wouldn't learn as quickly as if you had a mentor to teach you and train you. As to your question, why get your hive registered? Okay, some states do not have a requirement to register your hive. Some states do. The one I live in central Connecticut, this state, Connecticut, has a requirement. You need to register your hives for two reasons. One is the state bee inspector is going to help you keep your hives healthy and happy. Okay, that's one thing. The second thing is that bee inspector is going to keep, if you get a hive that gets sick, okay, that bee inspector is going to help you keep the sickness contained, because remember, you become a beekeeper not just for the honey, okay, you become a beekeeper to save the bee. And if your hive is contagious, you're not going to save the bee, you're going to kill all the bees around you. So he's
contagious with like ants or like some kind of...
No, it's called...
Pests?
It's called mainly bacterial infections.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, bacterial infections and then a mite, which we'll talk about in a later video.
Okay.
But bacteria and mites are really the main problem. If your beekeeper, your state bee inspector spots that problem, he can help contain it. So that's why register. Please, 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 please remember, go to your beekeeper's club, get a mentor. Very, very important. So those are the components. You've got the tools, the outfit, the bees, the equipment, the proper location. Okay, we've spoken about location. And my name is David once again. I've had a great time today. Stay subscribed to our channel. Subscribe for the first time, please, please, please. The Buzz. It's a great channel. Lots of good information, and we're just two young millennials hopping into this, and we're trying to save the bee. So hop on board with us. We're going to save the bee, and you know what? In the end, we may get a nice, sweet little quart of honey to top it all off. Have a great day.